and incredible turn of events. Hidden love revealed when she discovered the billionaire's secret in the heart of a small Midwestern town, where the diner lights flickered like fireflies against the drab night. Sarah poured coffee with a smile that could light up the darkest corners. At 28, she was the backbone of the Little Haven Diner, where she got to know every regular-S order by heart. While rain tapped rhythmically against the windows, her spirits remained high, fueled by the warmth of friendly faces and familiar laughter around her. Yet, beneath that radiant exterior was a heavy weight. Her single mother needed care, and money was always tight. As she finished a late shift, her tired feet dragged her to the door. That's when she saw him, Ethan, a fresh face with a tailored coat and an easy smile that could melt the coldest of nights. "What's good here?" he asked, leaning forward as if leaning in to share a secret. Their eyes locked, and Sarah felt an electric spark that sent a thrill down her spine. As they chatted about life in the diner, laughter bubbled from both sides. There was something captivating about him, something almost otherworldly. The rain cascaded down the glass, but inside, warmth surrounded them. "You must try the meatloaf. It's our pride and joy." She beamed, her heart racing as they talked. Ethan listened intently, a flicker of understanding behind his gaze. As he smiled and pushed a stray hair from his forehead, Sarah couldn't help but notice how out of place he seemed. His sleek style and polished demeanor contrasting sharply with the denim and plaid of her peers. Days turned into weeks as Ethan became a regular. With each visit, their connection deepened, yet Sarah felt an undercurrent of doubt. She soon discovered that the charming stranger was a reclusive billionaire, hidden from the prying eyes of the world. Initially, it seemed like a fantasy, a chance to pull herself and her mother out of their struggles. But underneath that allure lay complications. Would their love withstand the overwhelming scrutiny? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Just as their relationship flourished, the sky darkened with a brewing storm. One fateful day, nature unleashed chaos, ripping apart homes and shattering dreams. Yet, in the dense storm clouds, the community stood united, helping each other through. As Sarah watched Ethan step up to help repair the town, hope flickered inside her. Yet, anxiety twisted her stomach. Could she truly bring him into her world? As whispers swirled around her, skepticism seeped into her heart, threatening to tear them apart. Standing with Ethan, Sarah felt the pressure of judgment weighing down on them as she faced her friends' curious stares. Could love truly bridge the chasm of their social divide? A raging storm rumbled overhead, mirroring the turmoil within her as she gripped Ethan's hand fiercely. Love sparkled between them, but doubt rattled her resolve. As hope fought against despair, the question hung heavy. Would they find a way to unite their worlds, or would the storm tear them apart? The aftermath of the storm left the town in shambles, but Sarah felt a strange sense of strength within her. Ethan was there, by her side, helping to rebuild not just homes, but hope. She watched him as he carried broken beams and heavy loads, the muscles in his arms flexing with every movement. The sight only intensified her confusion. He didn't belong in this world of muddy boots and battered homes. Yet, with every laugh shared, every moment spent together, he became her anchor amid the chaos. "Sarah, can you hand me that hammer?" Ethan called out, his voice breaking through her clouded thoughts. She turned, surprised to see him grinning, drenched but determined. She tossed him the tool, her heart fluttering at the sight of his perseverance. He seemed alive, vibrant even, in this gritty landscape. It was a side of him she was beginning to love, the passionate individual fighting for a greater cause. But then came the reality check. The other townsfolk weren't as welcoming as Ethan was. They huddled together, exchanging glances that spoke volumes. Whispers buzzed through the air. like bees stirring awkwardly in unison. Sarah felt their eyes drill into her back. Could she really engage in this relationship with someone who clearly had ties to a world so much wealthier? She was just a waitress, he was a billionaire. Did they even speak the same language? Are you okay? Ethan's voice broke through her reverie as he approached, concern etched on his features. Yeah, just tired, she replied, forcing a smile. But in truth, it was more than just fatigue, it was the gnawing dread of what lay ahead. Each laugh and every shared moment was becoming tainted with trepidation. The storm had been impossible, but the thunder that loomed over their romance felt almost worse. The following day, the community gathered to help with repairs at the local school, which had suffered extensive damage. Sarah found herself in the kitchen, making sandwiches for everyone. The sun shone down, lifting spirits, but she felt heavy, anchored by her doubts. Ethan walked in, his hair still wet, his cheeks flushed from the day's work. Mind if I join you? He asked, a hint of mischief in his smile. Sure, Sarah allowed, her heart racing. Maybe all was well, and they could forget the differences, if only for a moment. They joked as they worked, laughter filling the air, muffling the tensions. But as they prepped the last batch of sandwiches, Sarah turned, leaning against the counter, her expression suddenly serious. Ethan, how do you see us? The question spilled out unfiltered, her heart pounding in sync with her words. He paused, his smile fading as he searched her face for answers. What do you mean? Us. I mean you and me. This, she gestured between them. It's perfect here, but what happens when we leave this place? What will everyone think? A frown creased his brow as he understood. Sarah, what they think doesn't matter. What matters is how we feel. But uncertainty crowded her heart. As they stood in the warmth of the kitchen, surrounded by friends yet separated by their realities, she couldn't shake her fear. Would their love endure the judgment when the dust settled? Just then, a deep voice echoed through the hall. What is going on here? It was Nathan, the town's mayor and a longtime friend of Sarah's mother. His eyes flicked back and forth between Sarah and Ethan. The air thickened, and Sarah's heart sank. Oh, Ethan muttered under his breath, his playful nature momentarily dimming. The tension crackled like a live wire, preparing to snap. Sarah swallowed hard. Would this be the moment everything changed? Would the truth of their relationship come crashing down, leaving her to pick up the pieces that had barely begun to form? As Nathan approached, the weight of the world pressed down upon her. Where would this lead? And would they find a way to weather the storm outside, while battling the tempest brewing within? Sarah's breath hitched as Nathan drew closer, the confident stride of the mayor contrasting sharply with her own fragile inner turmoil. She could feel the warmth of Ethan's arm brush against hers, a fleeting comfort that soon faded under the weight of the looming confrontation. The atmosphere was thick, punctuated by the silence of curious onlookers slowly gathering behind Nathan. What's going on between you two? Nathan's voice was steady but authoritative, as if he was demanding the truth rather than asking for it. Sarah glanced at Ethan, who met her gaze with an expression that spoke volumes, a mix of determination and apprehension. It's nothing, just helping out, Sarah found herself saying, the words tumbling from her lips, desperate to deflect the scrutiny. Is that so? Nathan raised an eyebrow, his gaze darting to Ethan. I've seen you here every day since the storm, Ethan. It's not just altruism, is it? You could be anywhere else, yet you're here. With her. Ethan took a small step forward, his posture straightening as he spoke with quiet strength. I'm here because I care about this community, and I care about Sarah. That shouldn't matter who I am or where I come from. Shouldn't it? Nathan's tone sharpened, the protective mayor shifting from a friend to a fierce sentinel. You're a stranger to this town, Ethan. We've been through a lot here. People will talk, and it won't all be kind. In that moment, Sarah's heart raced with uncertainty. She wanted to defend Ethan, to shout that he was more than just a wealthy outsider. But the walls of her mind closed in, echoing the whispers of doubt that had pooled in her heart since they had first become close. You don't know him like I do, she started, but the words felt feeble even to her. The crowd murmured, and she caught snippets of their conversation's frustration, concern, disbelief. Each syllable felt like a stone thrown at her, amplifying her dread. "Sarah," Ethan said softly, his voice steadying her spiraling thoughts. "You know who I am. But I'm not just a billionaire. My intentions are genuine."
Are they?
Nathan interjected. The tension was palpable. Or is this just another whim for someone with a bank account full of options? What happens when you leave? Her stomach churned at Nathan's words. They struck too close to home, triggering the fears she had shied away from. Would Ethan stick around when things got tough, or was he going to tire of the small-town life? "That's not fair," she exclaimed, frustration rising within her. Her heart ached as she grappled with her own mixed feelings. "Can't you see how hard we're both trying to make this work?" The room went still. All eyes were on them. Sarah felt the magnitude of the truth. They were seen not just as two people in a budding relationship, but as symbols of the deep rift between their worlds. Ethan took her hand, squeezing it lightly. "Sarah, we can weather this, if we choose to face it together." Just then, a young boy ran into the hall, mud-splattered and breathless. "Mr. Mayor, they found someone trapped in the wreckage by the old pet store. We need help." The urgency of the moment cut through the tension. Nathan's focus snapped to the boy, his role as the leader emerging immediately. "Right. Everybody, let us move." He turned and began rallying the townsfolk, the mayor's voice breaking the spell of uncertainty. Ethan glanced at Sarah, his eyes glimmering with a mix of reassurance and resolve. "Let us go. We're in this together." But as she followed him out into the chaos, a different storm brewed within her. A battle between love and fear raged silently. Could they truly survive the realities that loomed ahead? Would love prove stronger than the whispers and judgments surrounding their lives? As they stepped into the wild, Sarah's heart echoed her doubts. Would they find the strength to confront more than just the town's reconstruction? The road ahead felt uncertain, and the real challenge had only just begun. In the midst of the chaos, the urgency of Nathan's command resonated in the air. Sarah felt adrenaline surge as she and Ethan sprinted towards the old pet store. The sight of townspeople organizing into groups was a reminder of the strength and resilience that trickled through the veins of the community. Ethan kept pace beside her, his hand still gripping hers. His expression was determined, but she could see the faint crease of worry on his brow. "Stay close," he urged, his voice barely audible above the rising roar of panic. When they reached the scene, the devastation was overwhelming. The remains of what once was a beloved local landmark lay scattered, the smell of damp wood and dust mixed with the cries for help that echoed in the distance. Nathan was already directing a group, his authoritative voice guiding people on where to start. Sarah's heart raced as she scanned the debris. Hope and fear warred within her. What if they're stuck too far in? She whispered to Ethan, her voice trembling. "I won't let anything happen to you," he assured her, though the tension in his grip betrayed how serious the situation was. With Nathan's focus on the trapped victim, he was oblivious to the appraising looks from townsfolk moving around them. The whispers ensued, punctuated by soft gasps and doubtful glances. She could almost hear the judgments swirling around, thickening the air around them. Ethan was still a stranger in their eyes, and now, more than ever, she felt the weight of that suspicion pressing down on her. "Everyone, help me clear this away," Nathan shouted, rallying people to form a human chain, passing debris back and forth to reach the victim.
"We need to get to them fast."
With Ethan's help, Sarah found herself caught up in the commotion. They heaved wood and metal aside, her muscles straining, but she focused on the task, pushing aside thoughts of the confrontation from earlier. Each sweep of her arm felt like a small step towards proving herself, towards cementing Ethan's place in this community, and maybe even in her heart. As they worked, the tension between them shifted. The act of saving someone became a shared goal, drawing them closer. In those frantic moments, she caught glimpses of Ethan's unwavering resolve, and her heart swelled with gratitude. But shadows of doubt still clouded her mind. Would this change their feelings? Or were they merely binding themselves through shared chaos? Finally, as the last board was shifted, a weak voice, faint but unmistakable, echoed from beneath the wreckage. "Help! Over here!" Nathan's face transformed from urgency to determination. He counted heads, directing them to reach in carefully. "Get a stretcher. We're almost there." Ethan knelt down, looking through the gap. "I can see them," he yelled, his tone laced with hope. He reached out tentatively, but the space was small, the angles twisted. He glanced back at Sarah, a sudden weight of vulnerability surfacing in his eyes. "I'll need to go in."
What? No.
Sarah's heart hammered. "It's too dangerous." "What if, please," he said, his voice steady yet laced with urgency. "I can help. I can do this." Before she could protest further, Ethan slipped into the narrow space, pushing through debris with fierce determination. Time seemed to stretch into eternity as they waited, the rhythmic thumping of Sarah's heart filling her ears amidst the chaos. Would he be okay? Would he find the person? For the first time, she realized that their lives were intertwined, two worlds colliding under the weight of expectation, but also woven tightly by the hope of a shared future. Just then, a startling crack shattered the anxiety. A beam shifted precariously, and Sarah gasped, her breath caught in her throat, fear gripping her like an iron vice. "Ethan!" she screamed, her voice rising above the others. What happened next would change everything. Would they emerge from this unscathed? Or would the very foundations of their relationship be tested in the rubble of unforeseen turmoil? "Move back. Everyone move back." Nathan's voice boomed like thunder. Panic rippled through the crowd. Sarah's heart raced as she realized the beam was teetering dangerously, but all she could think of was Ethan, vulnerable and exposed beneath the wreckage.
"Get out, Ethan,"
she yelled, desperation thickening her throat.
"Please."
A couple of townsfolk instinctively stepped closer, hesitant to abandon the efforts that had begun to unravel, but Nathan held them back, his focus unwavering. "We need to stabilize this. It's going to fall." He barked instructions, eyes scanning the wreckage. Sarah's feet felt rooted in place, an intense urge to run in and drag Ethan out, battling against the fear that clenched her stomach. She fought through the crowd toward the gap, but a strong hand gripped her arm, pulling her back. Let him do his thing. It was Mrs. Parker, her face lined with concern but firm in her resolve. "But he's in there. What if trust him?" Mrs. Parker's voice rose above the clamor. "Ethan has got this." Forcing her gaze back to the rubble, she focused on that narrow crevice where Ethan had disappeared. The cries of the trapped victim hung in the air, a chilling reminder of how dire the situation was. And in that moment, Sarah realized she wasn't just worried about Ethan's safety. She deeply cared for him. Seconds felt like hours, and the crack of wood echoed ominously in the background. Then, from the shadows of the debris, a flicker of movement caught her eye. Ethan's arm emerged, covered in dirt and soot, but not empty. He was pulling something or someone toward him. "I've got them."
"Just a little more,"
he shouted, sheer determination lining his voice. With renewed strength, she pushed past the gathered crowd as more people crowded in to help. Nathan was now directing two others on how to secure the beam while Ethan continued to inch forward, his effort relentless. Sarah could see fear and sweat glistening on his forehead, but his resolve was unyielding. He wasn't backing down. Finally, a small figure was pulled into view, a child maybe 6 or 7 clinging to his shirt. "Help! Save me!" they cried, their voice trembling. Sarah's heart wrenched. The town's innocence encapsulated in that tiny plea. "Hold on, we're coming for you." Nathan's voice surged with urgency. He motioned Sarah to grab a blanket and use it to pull the child to safety. Without hesitation, she obeyed, folding the fabric tightly before darting toward Ethan. "Almost there, buddy. Just a little further," she encouraged, trying to catch a glimpse of that sweet face, hoping to offer comfort. In an instant, Ethan freed the child and heaved them toward her, and she instinctively wrapped the blanket around them with a protective embrace. The small body trembled, fear etched deeply across their features. "You're safe now," Sarah whispered, her emotions swelling. Amidst the chaos, she looked back toward the hole, but Ethan wasn't out yet. The instability of the structure creaked ominously again. "Ethan!" she shouted, panic clawing at her throat. "I'm okay.
Just working on it.
I'll be right out," he called, his voice carrying through the chaotic air. But Sarah wasn't confident anymore. As she watched the crew struggle to keep the beam steady, the undeniable fear etched on Nathan's face sent a wave of dread through her. Would they both make it out? Then, as the dust settled, the beam shifted again.
Hold it. Hold it.
Nathan barked. "Ethan!" Sarah screamed, tears streaming down her cheeks. Suddenly, Ethan's head popped into view, his face streaked with grime but determined. Just one more. With a loud crack, one side of the beam gave way. "Ethan!" she screamed again, the sound fracturing the turmoil swirling around them. And just like that, everything turned on its head. Would Nathan manage to pull them both out, or would the weight of disaster tear them apart forever? The world slipped away, each second stretching longer as Sarah stood frozen. Everything narrowed down to that collapsing beam, crashing down like a thunderstorm threatening to drown them all. Fear wrapped around her like a tight grip, squeezing her breath from her lungs. "Ethan!" she screamed, her voice breaking, her heart beating harder with every syllable. Nathan's shout of "pull back" jolted her, and a few figures stumbled away, terrified. The air thickened with dust and uncertainty. Time felt suspended, like a scene pulled from a movie just as the climax threatened to explode. Ethan's figure flickered in and out of view, half hidden by fallen wood. He was still fighting, determination etched into every line of his face. "One more," he called, but the stability of the structure was crumbling around him. Panic surged within Sarah, a tidal wave threatening to drown her thoughts. "Can't you move faster?" she shouted, words tumbling out in desperation. If she could reach him, if she could just pull him away from the danger, Sarah. "He knows what he's doing," Nathan shouted back, urgency lacing his tone. "We have to trust him." Each time Sarah glanced at Nathan, his face was a mix of concentration and fear, the kind that hinted he wasn't just facing a structural collapse, but a storm within the heart. He believed Ethan would come back to them, and it steadied her, even if just for a moment. Then the beam shuddered again, sending a shower of dust flying into the air. It was wrong. Everything felt wrong. Panic surged anew, threatening to overwhelm her senses. If Ethan fell with hearts pounding like drums, the townsfolk worked in tandem, shifting debris under Nathan's keen direction. She hoisted her eyes toward the darkness, willing herself to believe he would overcome this. Then, as if on cue, a glimmer of movement in the wreckage caught Sarah's breath. "Got him!" Ethan's voice, hoarse but resolute, broke through the chaos. He appeared, pulling another figure from the shadows. Sarah's heart raced when she saw it was another child, this one older, and clinging desperately to him. "Ethan!" she yelled, her heart swelling as the two continued to inch toward the opening. The crowd erupted into a chorus of support, a unified spirit forming around their heroism. "You can do it," they urged, voices ringing louder amidst the crashing sound of debris. But then, disaster struck. The beam cracked, and Sarah's breath caught in her throat.
"Get back!"
Nathan shouted, motioning everyone to retreat. But Sarah couldn't move. Her feet felt glued to the ground as helplessness washed over her. "No, no," she whispered. She couldn't lose Ethan. Not now.
"Hold on."
The faint flicker of hope echoed through her as Ethan pulled the child closer, reaching desperately for Nathan. One final push, then came a deafening crash. The floor beneath him shuddered violently, and with a choking gasp, the beam fell. For a split second, time hung in balance, then a collective gasp rose from the crowd. "Ethan!" Sarah cried, and she lunged forward, but Nathan's hand gripped her arm, anchoring her as he shouted to the others to hold steady. "We need to stabilize it now." With fierce determination, Nathan guided the townsfolk, his voice steady, drawing strength from every ounce of hope. And in that moment, Sarah saw it how much Nathan cared, how vulnerability bled into each command. Ethan's face was a mask of determination, and Sarah's heart pounded with a mixture of terror and admiration. He de-risked everything. But would it be enough? With a final pull, Nathan dove into the space beneath the crumbling beam, reaching out. "I've got you."
Just hold on.
Ethan shouted back, straining against the weight. As Nathan dove deeper into the wreckage, shadows gathered around Sarah. She could feel the crowd, the painful moments of uncertainty binding them together. They were all holding their breath, waiting, praying. Suddenly, the dust began to settle. A fragile peace hovered as silence enveloped the scene, but Sarah's heart raced, not knowing whether it was the beginning of salvation or the end of everything would Nathan's bravery break the bounds of disaster, or would they all be left with nothing but echoes of what once was? In the aftermath of chaos, a heavy silence lay over the scene. Dust clung to the air, thick and heavy like the weight on Sarah's heart. She stood, frozen, battling the tide of fear and hope that surged within her. Where was Ethan? Had Nathan been able to reach him? The crowd hung in uncertain air, breaths held in a collective pause. Sarah's eyes darted between the debris and the hopeful faces that surrounded her. She could see the fear etched on Nathan's face and the tense worry in the eyes of the townspeople, mirroring her own turmoil. Each second felt like an hour, every heartbeat a reminder of what hung in the balance. As the dust cleared, Sarah squinted through the haze. "Ethan." Her voice broke through the silence, but no reply came. Her mind raced, feeding the fear festering inside. What if he was no?
She wouldn't let herself think that way.
Just as despair threatened to take her under, she saw movement. From the shadows emerged Nathan, his hair covered in dust and sweat pouring down his face. Heart racing, Sarah leaned forward, desperate for news. Then, from behind him, a figure appeared. Ethan stumbled out, supporting the child. Relief washed over her like a wave, almost knocking her breath away. He was alive. Her heart soared, but she could see the grimace on his face, the edge of pain as he struggled to hold the young boy. "Ethan!" Sarah screamed, rushing forward. Without thinking, she reached for him, her arms wrapping around him tightly, anchoring them to this moment. The crowd around them exhaled as one, a wave of relief washing over them. "You're okay. You made it." But the joy was short-lived. She saw the lines of agony on Ethan's face as the boy slipped to the ground beside him. "The roof, it's unstable. We need to," Ethan choked out, breathless. "Where's the other child?" Nathan interjected, scanning the area, something stirring in his voice. 2 children had been trapped beneath the beam. Had they saved only one? Ethan's eyes flickered momentarily as panic rose. "I thought they were both no," Sarah shouted, adrenaline flooding her body.
I'll go.
Before she could process the consequences, she turned and darted back to the wreckage. The dust had settled, showing glimpses of devastation.
No.
"Sarah." Nathan's voice roared after her, desperately trying to pull her back, but she could barely hear him over the pounding of her heart. Each step felt heavy, but she forced herself forward, praying she would find the child before it was too late. She ducked beneath beams and rubble, each movement tight with urgency. Sweat trickled down her brow, mingling with the dirt that speckled her skin. Panic coursed through her veins. She wasn't about to let fear control her. As she neared the last traces of the collapse, she saw a small hand peeking out from beneath a fallen piece of wood.
Hold on,
she cried, quickly digging and lifting with all her strength. Hearing a whimper made her heart stop. "Help!" came a tiny voice from below. Desperation clawed at Sarah. She strained harder, pulling away debris while praying for it to give way. "Stay with me. I'm almost there." Finally, light broke through, and there was the girl. She was scared but unmistakably alive, her eyes wide with fear. Relief rushed through Sarah, but time was running short. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed, as if the structure had heard her pleas for help. "Sarah, get out now." Nathan shouted as he rushed toward her, and the crowd erupted into screams of terror. She glanced back one last time. They had to make it out. As Nathan reached for her, shadows loomed overhead again, and she felt the world shift. Would they all make it out of this? With everything on the line, she held the girl close to her heart, determination buoying her spirit. "We're getting out," she declared. But as she turned, she knew they might not be alone in this fight for life. Could the connections forged in desperation lead them to safety, or would it shatter forever, leaving them in the dark? The weight of the moment crushed Sarah as she clutched the girl tightly, her heart thundering in her chest. She could feel Nathan's breath on her neck as he skidded to a halt beside her, panic flashing in his eyes. "We need to move.
Now."
The air felt alive around them, crackling with urgency. As Nathan reached for her arm, the ground beneath them trembled, sending a shock of adrenaline coursing through her veins. She couldn't let fear drive her. "Not now. Come on," she yelled, pushing the girl gently but insistently forward. "You can do this." The girl nodded, tears mixing with dirt on her cheeks. Sarah could see that spark of determination flicker in those big, frightened eyes. But the structure groaned like a wounded animal, and the cracks grew wider, shadow creeping into their sanctuary. Time was running out. They sprinted toward the fractured opening, Nathan leading the way. The cool air felt like a balm against their sweaty skin, but Sarah could barely breathe, feeling the weight of their lives on her shoulders. She glanced back, the collapsing walls of her world closing in. "Hurry!" Just as they neared the exit, a deafening roar echoed in the wreckage. Dust exploded around them, stinging her eyes and filling her lungs. Sarah choked, instinctively pulling the girl behind her. Impulsively, she threw her body against Nathan and the child, shielding them as debris rained down.
"Get down,"
Nathan shouted, pressing into her as he shielded them with his own body. For a split second, everything slowed. The chaos faded into a dull roar, and all Sarah could hear was the pounding of her heart, the pulse of desperation thrumming through her veins. Yet amidst the chaos, she felt an unfamiliar warmth wash over her. Nathan's strength, his steadfastness grounding her. The dust settled slightly, and Nathan lifted his head first, scanning the area. "We have to move." His voice cut through her daze. She nodded, urgency pushing her legs into action. They crawled forward, fighting their way through the chaos, hearts racing. The exit was closer now, the flicker of daylight a beacon of hope that pulled them forward. With one last push, they tumbled out into the open air, gasping for breath. The sunlight was blinding, but it felt like salvation. Sarah stood, looking around at the crowd that had gathered, shock and relief etched on their faces. "Is everyone okay?" She managed to call out, her voice shaky but strong enough to carry. Nathan pushed himself to his feet, helping the little girl as she stood, shaking but unharmed. He looked back into the wreck, determination etched on his face. "What about Ethan? We need to find him." Panic surged inside Sarah again. "He was right behind us." Before she could finish, Ethan stumbled through the dust-clouded threshold, barely keeping his footing. A silent gasp rolled through the crowd. His face was ashen, but he was alive. "Sarah," he yelled, his voice raw with emotion. "Is everyone okay?" Tears welled in her eyes as she rushed to him, collapsing into his arms. Relief flooded her, washing away the remnants of terror. "You're okay. You made it." But as Ethan held her tightly, she felt something shift within him, an aching heaviness settled in his embrace. Pulling back, she searched his eyes, the deep wells of concern telling her something wasn't right. "What happened?" she asked, her voice trembling, her heart sinking. "We need to get everyone to safety first," Ethan replied, his face a mask of concern. "There's something you need to know, something I should have told you a long time ago." The air felt charged with an unseen tension. Sarah held her breath, fear intermingling with curiosity. The world around her faded into a blur. What could be so important that it had to wait until after everything? Before the thoughts could spiral out of control, Nathan interjected, urgency flaring again in his voice. Ethan, whatever it is, it can wait. People are affected, and we need to plan how to help the injured. But as the older man began to speak, Sarah felt a storm brewing inside her. Secrets tended to unravel when life got tough. And now was no different. With a quick glance at Ethan's solemn face, curiosity sparked anew. What truths would emerge from the rubble?
Wait.
She called out, her resolve hardening. First, we'll help them. Then, we'll talk. The burden of the secret hung heavy among them, waiting to be shared. As they rushed to help their neighbors, they were left with the unspoken question, how would the truth change everything they thought they knew about each other? The sun beat down on the chaos outside the collapsed structure, and the scent of dust mingled with desperation hung heavily in the air. People milled about, shock written on their faces. Sarah felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. She looked at Nathan and Ethan, both men struggling with their own burdens of truth and worry. Let us get everyone to safety, Sarah yelled, her voice slicing through the thick tension. She gestured with her arm, directing people towards the small park at a distance where trees swayed invitingly. It would be a temporary refuge, a place to breathe. Nathan nodded, rallying nearby families to follow.
Come on.
We need to move. His deep voice held an urgency that rang true. Sarah glanced back at Ethan, who still wore that troubled expression. Ethan, are you okay? She asked, trying to read his face. You look, I'm fine, he cut her off, but the words felt bare, not quite right. They began to move, helping others out of the wreckage. Sarah held hands, guided children, reassured the frightened. Voices that were once cries for help had turned into murmurs of hope. Each person they ushered forward felt like a small victory against the looming dread. As they made it to the park, the sounds of sirens pierced the air like alarms ringing in their ears. Emergency responders were on the way, and in that moment, the reality of their shared survival washed over her. It should have felt like a release, but there was something still binding her heart, a tension that gnawed at her insides. What is it, Ethan? She pressed gently, feeling the urgency come rushing back in waves.
What did you want to tell me?
He hesitated, a flicker of pain crossing his face, overshadowing the relief of having escaped.
Not here, Sarah. Then where?
She demanded, frustration bubbling up. I can't keep wondering. You're okay. That's all that matters right now. But Nathan interrupted, stepping closer. What we need is a strategy. We have injured people who need help. Secrets can wait. Secrets have a way of resurfacing, Sarah replied, locking eyes with Ethan. The words lingered between them like unspent electricity. Suddenly, a small boy ran past them, his face streaked with dirt and tears, and it pulled Sarah's focus away, reminding her of the urgency. She took a deep breath, pushing her own fears down for a moment. All right, let us focus on what's in front of us. With grim determination, they organized a small triage near the park, using whatever they could gather from the crowd. A few blankets were spread out, and Sarah attended to the first victim, a woman with a bleeding gash on her forehead. The sight of her blood, warm and fresh, pushed reality back into sharp focus. Ethan knelt beside her, squeezing Sarah's arm, his touch a reminder of the bond they'd shared throughout this ordeal. We'll get through this, he assured. But Sarah caught the flicker of doubt in his gaze. What if we don't, Ethan? What if we're not the same after this? Before Ethan could answer, Nathan's voice broke in from across the area. We need to keep the injured calm. The paramedics will be here soon. In that moment, Sarah felt the weight of history and unspoken words pressing on her. Should she push for the truth now, or keep the fragile thread of their friendship intact? Would the next revelation break them apart, or would it bind them together in new ways? And in the back of her mind, a question lingered. Was there something in Ethan's past that tied him to this disaster? The thought made her skin prickle. Her heart raced as she watched him respond to another injured person. Just then, the sound of police sirens grew louder, drawing nearer. The moment hung pregnant with potential lives could change in an instant. As the first responders burst into sight, hope and desperation collided, leaving the future uncertain. Would they be able to rise from the ashes, or would the secrets buried deep lead to deeper wounds? As the paramedics began to assess the crowd, Sarah stole another glance at Ethan, her resolve hardening. Whatever he was hiding, she needed to understand. Because the truth might hold the key to their survival. "Ethan," she called, her voice rising above the noise, shaking off her hesitation.
"We need to talk now."
At that moment, the chaos surrounding them felt both fragile and full of promise. As the dust began to settle, a fragile peace enveloped Little Haven. The emergency responders swarmed around the makeshift triage area, their voices urgent yet calm, guiding the injured away from the wreckage toward safety. Sarah watched, heart racing, the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. Her eyes locked onto Ethan, who was speaking with a paramedic, his face lined with exhaustion and determination. For a split second, their eyes met, and in that instant, a wave of unspoken understanding passed between them. But now was the moment to bridge the distance that secrecy had woven between their hearts. She could no longer let doubt linger in the air like unspent tension. "Ethan," Sarah called out once more, her voice cutting through the din. She stepped forward, heart thumping. "We need to talk, now." He straightened, focus shifting to her. Something flickered in his eyes, sensitivity mixed with reluctance. But Sarah could see the weight he carried. It mirrored her own. People around them bustled, but all that noise faded to a dull hum. "What's on your mind, Sarah?" he asked, his voice steady, yet she could hear the tightness lurking beneath. "It's about us. About everything." She gestured around, the chaos slowly unfurling into some semblance of order, but feeling fully chaotic still. "I can't pretend anymore." His gaze fell to the ground, and in that instant, Sarah felt the world shake beneath her. Would he reveal what lay behind the curtain of his wealth? What ties pulled him deeper into this situation than just a simple act of kindness? She stepped closer, placing her hand on his forearm, her heart pleading for transparency. "What happened today, it's changed things. I've seen you fight for this town. I've seen you fight for me, and I can't just stand here and wonder what it all means anymore. What is it we really are?" He saw the determination in her eyes, the way her spirit shimmered with hope and vulnerability. The tumult of emotions in his chest felt like jagged rocks, ready to tumble. "I've held back because I didn't want to complicate everything," but he inhaled sharply, and in that moment, she saw his resolve solidifying. "You deserve to know the truth, Sarah." A few nearby paramedics paused their work, sensing the shift, but Nathan motioned them to continue. This was their moment. "I didn't just come to Little Haven by chance. My family," he hesitated, eyes reflecting distant shadows. "They've been wealthy for generations, but it's come at a price. I've spent my life trying to distance myself from that world, trying to prove that I'm more than just a name on a check. I thought helping people would allow me to escape that reputation." Panic flickered at the edges of Sarah's heart. "Escape? You risked everything today. You almost got buried under that debris." "I know," he said firmly. "It was reckless, but it felt right. Being here with you, it's freed me in ways I never imagined. But I've been scared," he confessed, his shoulders slumping slightly under the weight of his admission. "Scared of how you'd respond when you found out the truth." "I'm scared too," she admitted softly, vulnerability spilling into her words. "Scared of what this all means. Can we really be together when our worlds feel so different? The people here, they might never understand." Ethan stepped closer, his gaze earnest. "They will if we show them. If we stand together." Today proved that love isn't about how much money you have or don't have. It's about fighting for something important. "I'm fighting for you, Sarah." Tears welled in her eyes as she felt the solid ground beneath her shift once more. "You're brave, Ethan. And I'm terrified, but if you're with me, I want to face it. Together." Hope blossomed like wildflowers in the ashes, their underlying connections binding tighter. A cheer erupted in the distance as townsfolk gathered to help their spirits ignited anew by the day's events. Nathan joined them, pride swelling in his chest. "We've come together. We're going to rebuild, and we'll do it as a community." Ethan took Sarah's hand within his. Each beat of their hearts resonated the beginning of something transformative. Together, they echoed softly, a promise stronger than the storm that had tested them. And just like that, in the middle of chaos, in the heart of uncertainty, they felt the strength of love forging a path forward, a tapestry drawn from vulnerability, shared experience, and a commitment to one another that felt indomitable. The sun broke through the clouds, casting a warm glow on Little Haven. As they stepped toward the community, hand in hand, hope thrummed in the air, lighting every heart in its path. It was an incredible turn of events. Love revealed in the wreckage, stronger than any doubt, ready to paint their future together with the colors of resilience. Now, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like right away to feed the algorithm. And comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. What do you think next? Finally, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand how important it is to support the channel through these actions.